Internet use violations. This is a case study for school law. First one is category, problem, identification, and analysis. First off, what do we know? Roosevelt High School is a school that is part of a city where families are well off. They have lots of money. There's always those parts of the city, or even parts of even small towns that have those families who are have the money, have the nicer clothes and things. The principal of the school, Dr. Forbes, has been a school for 9 years and has a great reputation and is respected by many, whether it be by teachers, whether it be by students, whether it be by parents in the community. He's known for hiring quality teachers. He takes a lot of time and to find the correct fit for the job, and obviously at the higher level education of those teachers makes that better for the students, and he's respected for that. A year ago, he hired Miss Cindy Walker, a teacher to specialize in science such as zoology, botany, and genetics. I mean, she had her master's. I think she even had credits beyond her level of education for just to be able to teach. So this is an example of what type of person he is in hiring somebody like that, as well as her, who is very well educated. We also know that Miss Walker had a structured classroom with high expectations of her students. She was very rigorous of what she did. She had high expectations, meaning very fine detail, making sure that students understood what she needed for them to get a good grade. And if they didn't follow those strict guidelines or rubrics, then obviously she was very critical of those. Students were stressed because of the difficulty of the subject as well as her approach in the delivery. A lot of times we have those teachers that that may be causing those stresses, or not maybe the teachers, but the students have a lot of stress because they are pressured by parents to have that 4.0 so they can get that college degree, and if they don't get that 4.0, they're not going to be valedictorian, salutatorian, or even top percentages of their class. We do also know that the parents had called Dr. Forbes many times worried about their students would receive their low grades, and that goes back to the fact that there were some issues, maybe that the prior knowledge that her class was difficult, but that's not less important. All classes should be should have a higher level of difficulty, but when you're talking about zoology and botany, you know that what you're kind of getting into. Dr. Forbes discussed different techniques to help reduce stresses with the students, but hasn't had much success using them. He obviously had talked to her about some different ways to possibly approach the students, maybe even teach or to make it easier to understand for them to be productive in the classroom. But either she did not use them or did not do a great job of doing that in the classroom, and the kids didn't get the effects. They were still stressed. They're still obviously very frustrated. After she was gone for a long weekend with her parents that lived 3.5 hours away or 3 hours away, she returned with an email, an anonymous email, with a link that had a site that had comments about her behavior, and ultimately one that it stated, "Who wants Miss Walker to disappear?" And she took that right away, and as anybody, nobody wants their feelings hurt. I mean, I'm as a coach, I've went through that, and still from time to time, you never want to hurt kids' feelings, but kids, when they're upset and disappointed, they will do things that social media comes to mind. They're going to post some things, and in this case, it's anonymous. Nobody knows where this is coming from. What else do we know? She felt threatened with her life. Anytime that is brought up, that's you've got to address that as an administrator, whether it's a student or if it's a teacher. because obviously safety is a very important issue when we're dealing with schools. Um, so she called Dr. Forbes and the website to explain obviously what had happened. She forwarded the email. He checked it out himself and went on his approach. He handles it as a possible prank because obviously you don't want to overreact on any of these issues that occur in school, especially as an administrator. If you jump the gun, sometimes it'll bite you in the backside. So it's important that we don't dress it, but he dressed it as a prank. Maybe the kids didn't mean it like that. Maybe if they just said, you want to disappear, maybe they just wanted to go to another school. It's difficult to take that, but you never know how any individual may take a comment. But she wants to get the police involved. That's one of those things. The last thing you probably want to do is get the police involved. But if it's something necessary, then obviously you may have to get to that step. But whenever you're dealing with school and police, the media is obviously going to eventually get involved, the newspapers and such. Dr. Fields wanted her to reflect back to possible remember who it might be. Who could it be? It could be somebody, and she right away said that it was Randy. A student that had made some comments behind either her back or away from her that was obviously disturbing and not necessarily a disturbing comment, but things that he didn't appreciate maybe she was doing in her classroom. What do we need to know? Technology department can determine who is in charge of the site or who the email belongs to. I mean, if it's an internet communications company that can even help us, or like in our case, we have Two Trees. Is it possible that we would be able to find out where it comes from? Did Ms. Walker have a recent problem with a student? Any of the students, one or two, maybe we can narrow the list down. Have other teachers that have had problems with students. This is one of those things, if it's one student that has occurred in just her class, maybe it's just something that they have a personality conflict, or maybe it's something that all teachers are having to deal with. What approaches have to be used in the class to change, and why haven't they been used? Why is it that, she's continuing to have the problems even when there's been intervention or some type of changes that have been implemented or at least brought to her attention? Is it an internet use policy in the school, and is slander involved? The policies need to be followed first, and whether it be used in the school, and then slander. Obviously, we don't want to ruin somebody's name, whether it be the student or the teacher, by posting something that's inappropriate. Identifying the problem. First off, we need to find out who created the site using our tech department or other means, some type of investigation. When do we figure out who gets what type of discipline? Is there something in our handbook, or do we have to act on our own and figure out as we go along? Social media, this is one of those things. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram are such means of kids' communications nowadays. They don't want to talk to you. They want to hide behind it and post their feelings. And sometimes they're rational. And, even in pro athletes, you see that nowadays where they say something and then they have to retract the statements because after a while they sit back and think, and maybe that wasn't as bad as it appeared to be at first. Take a deep breath, get away from the situation. But kids nowadays, they post it right away. And if a kid was very upset, and it's happened in my class, the kids didn't like something and they post something right away. Not threatening, but something, I just don't like this. I don't want to do this. Maybe kids just want to leave, not have her killed. They just wanted to leave. That's my first thoughts, was the fact that they didn't really necessarily hate her, but they just wanted her to leave. They wanted somebody else. And can Miss Walker continue? Her safety and her feelings are as important as well. We need to make sure that she is being able to function correctly in a positive manner in the school. Category 2, propose a plan with actions, appropriate strategies for implementation. My first approach would be to go into the tech department and obviously try to find a way to track the emails or the site designer. Reviewing the handbook would come into play as to see what punishments are in place. I would then follow up by calling in some students that are trustworthy and questioning them if they have seen anything, heard anything. Obviously there's those students you can trust. Um, and then I would handle it in a professional manner so that the subject doesn't affect the classroom environments. If those things don't work, then I would inform all the students that we would need to try to allow those to come forward, or we may have to get the law involved if comments are determined to be a threat. People act impulsively, and if they have had time to think about what they may have said or would come forward, and we could have a lesser punishment. And that's always one of my things. If kids confess up, maybe we can compromise something out. Resolving the issue based on promoting success for all students. There are a few things that I would like to look at when addressing this section. First off is Ms. Walker returning back to the classroom. I know that she's a good teacher by letting her know that she is safe and understand that she might want to try something, a new approach that had been discussed, and these will allow her to grow as a first-year teacher. And I would allow her or make sure that the students know I support her back as well. Part of being successful is also learning from your mistakes. We don't know if Randy did it, and we can't accuse, but we can suspect, maybe it is Randy or maybe it's somebody else. Allowing students to come forward would show that they are forgiving and understanding, and yet a level of discipline would still need to enforce so that we would be less inclined to follow in the same footsteps. Other kids are going to want to follow. If somebody gets away with it, then somebody else is going to try. So we need to make sure we set that base that we're not going to tolerate something like this. Debriefing the problem, what you're thinking, feeling, valuing. First, when I read this, I couldn't help but think about the social media and how it affects, approaches kids, and how students handle things. They're more inclined to post something when they're mad, they're sad, or happy. I thought that Ms. Walker may have overreacted a little. Also, when students were posting what they want, but most likely are just wanting to teach somewhere else. They didn't want her to disappear and have her killed, but they wanted to, make sure that, they just didn't want her around anymore. Although in today's world we have to address everything, and that's one of my concerns. No matter what, if somebody feels threatened, we have to be sure that their safety is most first and foremost. After I read a few more times, I started to feel that Ms. Walker and that nobody wanted to be hated and shot down. Nobody wants to get the law involved, and we want to handle this fairly. We as teachers do a lot most of the time, and for little compliments we get from parents or students, those little compliments and things we get are what we kind of live for sometimes. At least I do, and we don't want to upset anybody, but we don't like people being upset with us as well. Issues to have resolved. This is something that may take more than a day or to investigate, and we have to keep in mind. Teachers or students feel threatened is important. Like I said, in Standard 3.3 says we need to make sure that staff and students are safe. I would like to know why Mrs. Walker didn't address any of these changes, and I would also like to know, are these the parents that are complaining about everything? There are those parents that do that. Are there students in her class with past history, similar events like Randy? Are there others? Maybe there's other Randys. Is it important to support the teachers as well as students in our school? By doing that, we have productive learning environment, and that's obviously Standard 3.5. I'm a building representative. I would not act quickly on the suspect and investigate the problems as discreetly as possible. I would also back Ms. Walker's worries by investigating and following up to make her feel as safe as possible. Reflecting component 2, I wouldn't accuse Randy of posting this until the evidence is on its way. We don't want to damage a student's credibility as well as a teacher for future. I would also try to keep learning environment moving as normal as possible to ensure all students are not affected. We have to respect Mrs. Walker for being scared as well as Randy for being reflection. Component 3, I wouldn't rush to judge someone, Randy, for possible doing it, or Miss Walker for being upset. If somebody's upset, we have to take that as best we can. By offering Miss Walker professional development to improve her classroom environment, and by interviewing students, discreetly checking with the tech department, and doing my best to keep it as low-keyed as possible.